Okay, I think we are live now. Hello, Johanna. How's it going?
Hi, it's going well. How is it going with you?
Good. Thanks for joining me on this live today. I am with the education coordinator at Psychedelics Today, Johanna Hilla. Yeah, thanks for spending some time chatting with me about Vital.
Yeah, super excited for it.
Cool. So, if you could give us a little bit of background about yourself and introduce yourself to the audience, I think that would be so great.
Sure. So, originally from Finland, but I'm kind of a nomadic person. I've lived uh, outside of Finland for the past 15 years. I'm currently residing in the UK, in Devon, living in Exeter. And the reason why I moved here was because I was also doing my PhD in philosophy of science. I have since then actually ended that as Vital has become a priority. But I have a background in religious studies and psychology as well. I have specialized in Jungian psychology, so I wrote my master thesis on the Red Book. And in Vital, I also get to teach people more generally about Jungian psychology, but also about practices such as dream work, shadow work, connecting with your intuition, and various things like this. So, yeah, I have had a deep interest and passion for psychedelics for many years. So I've been in this field for, I would say, over 10 years now. So I got in quite early, and I never imagined it to be a career, but at the same time, working in education is something that I feel like I didn't foresee it, but it seems like a very much like a right fit. Both of my parents are teachers. I have a lot of people working in education in my family background, and I've always been called to surround myself with academics and educators and people who work in research. So it's like a natural passion, and being in this role, I get to dabble in so many different disciplines. So it's really fascinating for me. And yeah, so that's probably a little bit about me. I've been collaborating with Psychedelics Today for over 5 years now. I've been working in this role with Vital for 3 years, and just really loving it and enjoying being part of this crazy magical journey.
That's wonderful. And so you were kind of a part of the core team who ended up creating the program. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that was. I had started some time before, and then Kyle was just said that we're gonna launch this big education program, and I would love you to be part of it, and I started to do quite a lot of things also around like program development side of things, and yeah, now myself, Kyle, and David, we do a lot of the sort of operational things, and then Diego and Mika and Faith, and we have Mike. We have so many amazing people who are also working in the team, and then the whole PT thing obviously is just like doing incredible things to make Vital run. So yeah, been part of it since the beginning.
Amazing. And it is truly a team effort. I can certainly see that on my end as well. I would love to understand kind of what was the ethos behind the program. How did Vital come to be? And what essentially is it trying to accomplish through the year-long training?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think Kyle oftentimes speaks about his background and being in this sort of alternative education system himself at Burlington College, which since then had closed. I never had an opportunity to be part of something like that prior to Vital, but I think there has always been the idea of like continuing in the legacy of the education around transpersonal psychology, around holistic healing, around spirituality, religious studies, philosophy, and like creating this kind of soup that builds many bridges across different kinds of disciplines. And then psychedelics obviously being the centerpiece, because I think when people start working with psychedelics, the kind of information that they need is just simply not contained into one distinct discipline. And I think now when psychedelics are becoming more mainstream, there might sometimes be the mistake of just putting them into like, okay, that's something for psychologists, but it's really not. Like you need history, and you need anthropology, and you need philosophy, and you also need these different understandings of like spiritual traditions, for instance, to really be able to work in space holding roles, and in creating containers for people to have transformative experiences. So psychedelics being the core thread, we wanted to create something around it that would simultaneously honor the kind of legacy that we were building upon, which for Kyle and myself is in this transpersonal psychology and in breathwork, and while also just like incorporating this very, very multidisciplinary approach that also has a practical element to it. And as the program has gone along, what we've found to be very, very important is having this inner work component. So really teaching people skills of self-knowledge and self-awareness, and allowing them some access to tools that really get them deeper into their own process, understanding themselves better, because that really is the prerequisite for working with psychedelics to begin with. And that also seems to be the thing that we most often get credited for, or people thank us for, is that actually this program really allows you to tap into these sort of unexamined aspects of yourself, hopefully, so that then you, when you go forward doing things professionally, you are actually making a much more informed decision that um, is not coming from sort of some egotistical or superficial reasons.
That's great. I mean, thank you so much for providing that context. I think it's important for our audience to understand just how multidisciplinary the Vital program is. I mean, we get questions all the time about its structure. What am I going to learn? And it's just very much so across the board. Can you please break down what the year looks like for a Vital student? If somebody is going to join us, what can they expect to learn? What does their journey look like? And how can they kind of see themselves transform throughout the year when they're joining us?
Yeah, of course, of course. So the program structure has changed a lot over the course of years. And whereas prior, on the first year, we, for instance, we really wanted to provide a lot of content on philosophy and history. We also found out oftentimes that people really are looking for more sort of practical approaches to things. So the program itself is broken up into 5 different modules, and 4 of those are pre-recorded, and also the 5 modules are spaced around the 4 elements plus the 5th element, which is the ether. So they each have a bit of a sort of different flavor or color based on that association. So the first module is really about the evolution and the overview of the psychedelic landscape, and we talk about what Vital is, what the ethos of Vital is. We introduce you to different indigenous cosmologies, different Western philosophical traditions that have been, touching upon altered states and writing about psychoactive substances in general, and really talk about research. We give you an overview of the psychedelic research and the field and what it looks like, and just generally try to give you like us kind of broad and general overview of what are the kind of main metaphysical and philosophical over existing frameworks that you want to be considering and when you're moving into this direction, as well as like what is the most prevalent research that already exists that will be kind of relevant for you as you go on in your journey. So there's both things from the past and from the present, but the first module is more sort of a bit more theoretical than the other ones, and then we move on to kind of like talking a bit more about preparation and assessment, and giving you skills as an actual practitioner of like how you would be dealing with somebody who's coming in for you and wanting to have a psychedelic experience or needing integration or preparation support. So talking you through on like how you can actually prepare your clients, how you can prepare systems, um, how does the actual practice of guiding somebody through the experience that is also incorporate in the program, although we do always mention that this is not a facilitation training, this is an education program. So while we have different speakers who talk a lot about facilitation, we essentially encourage students always to, if they want to pursue facilitation, to pursue other forms of training as well, because you cannot really replace in-person training. Like this is an online program, so there's only so much we can give, even though we try to give you as much as possible. In this second part, we also talk about kind of just what are ethics, what is ethical practice, how can we really ensure that we are working in ways that really reduce harm. So harm reduction is really a big piece of it. We talk about consent, and we also talk about, like, starting to talk about different kinds of embodiment practices like breathwork, meditation, and mindfulness. And I'm kind of cruising through the different modules as I go along. But what we have recently added also is a module on inner work. So as we progress in the program, we try to give people more opportunity to really go deeper into their own practice through breath work, through dream work. And what I'm really passionate about is also all this just Jungian stuff, and kind of what it touches upon more is kind of like how to cultivate your own connection with yourself, your unconscious, your soul, if you may, and like interpret these different types of things, the information that comes through psychedelic experiences and altered states of consciousness in a way that is most meaningful and fruitful for you. And then moving on, I'm not going into doing this in such a detailed way, but just giving you a rough overview. Towards the second part of the year, we have a module on water, which is around navigating psychedelic space. So in that module, we really go deep into kind of like, okay, what is space holding, and how can it be done in the best possible way? And in that, we talk also about some theoretical frameworks, but we talk about practical things like music, about facilitator self-awareness, how groups operate versus one-to-one work, talk about trauma, challenging psychedelic experiences, embodiment, spiritual emergence, all of these sort of very important themes that often come up when people are dealing with psychedelics. And yeah, finally, we have a module on integration, integration is kind of a key theme that runs through the entire program. So, but we also have an entire module for it, because it really is, integration is kind of where it's at. It's really not in the experience itself. So we talk about all these different facets of integration, different kinds of psychological frameworks that might be helpful in incorporating the experience into your life, such as IFS, emotion focused therapy, again, Jungian therapy. And we continue talking about things like challenging psychedelic experiences. And yeah, so that's a very, very broad overview of the program in general. But in addition, we also have electives. So every year we offer around 10 different electives, and the topics vary widely. So we have topic on shadow, we have topic on Jungian psychology, on microdosing, on regenerative business and building your psychedelic career, on ketamine therapy specifically. We had a wonderful elective on palliative care and death and dying processes, and on somatic work. So there's loads of, on neuroscience, there's loads of different alternatives. And then of those, the students get to choose two, unless they want more, they can also optionally choose more of those. So that's really the core arc of the program. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but for those of you who are actually genuinely interested in the program, that is what you can realistically expect.
That's great. I mean, I thank you for outlining all of that, Johanna, because I think it's super important for our audience to understand just how multifaceted that journey is. And it is a little bit long. I know a year-long training can seem like a lot to some. And we often get people asking, why is it a year long? But just to kind of reiterate, this process is not only a process of learning for yourself, but also transformative for your own inner work and developing as a practitioner or as a professional in the psychedelic space. So I really do appreciate you explaining a little bit about that. I also had a quick question. I know that we are now integrating the specializations track, which is totally new for Vital. Can you go into a little bit of detail about what it means to earn a certificate of integrative psychedelic studies with one of our new specializations?
Yeah, happily. Um, so yeah, as you mentioned, the specializations are a new addition, and the specializations are, I hope I remember all of them now, microdosing, depth psychology, spiritual emergence, and regenerative business, and or regenerative economics and business, and somatics. Sorry, somatics and trauma. So out of those five, for those students who want to earn a specialization, you will basically, a couple of weeks into the program, you'll have an opportunity to make a selection. And what this means essentially is that there's some extra material that we ask you to go through. And essentially, we really just ask you to use that lens also through your year's learning and the assignments that we ask you to do, so that you don't become an expert, you don't become a specialist, but you just gain a deeper understanding of it for yourself. And in that, you essentially, you will earn the it's like as Swati already mentioned. So you will have the certificate in integrative psychedelic studies with the specialization in one of these themes, and that just indicates that you have spent time learning about this specific theme, and that you have a bit more deeper understanding of it than of the other ones, and that this is kind of a specialized interest of yours. um, so this is something that our students have, in not explicitly but implicitly, been asking us for a while. It's just more like more ways in which they can go a little bit deeper into the subject matter that they're learning. So through the specialization, we basically ask you to just read some relevant literature. We ask you to write these papers in this specific way, and essentially go through a certain amount of additional materials that then you have to indicate that you've gone them through by doing some quizzes, so that you can show that you've actually done your learning. So it's just an add-on, and I think it's something that makes the learning a little bit more interesting, because we're just challenging the students to um, use their learning in a specific way, and to really start to incorporate it already into the work, into the learning that they're doing in this sort of active way. I hope that answers the question. I feel
Yeah,
like it was a bit of a
absolutely.
tangent.
No, it's great. That's awesome. Thanks, Johanna. So, just to clarify, if we are taking the specializations as an add-on to the Vital program, doesn't necessarily mean you are a specialist in this area. It just means you have an area of emphasis, and you have kind of spent additional time really digging into the area that really interests you within this very multifaceted paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we considered it for a while of calling it tracks, just because obviously using the word specialization, there's you kind of run a risk of people thinking that it's that you're going to be a specialist in that. But yeah, we chose to go with the specialization still, and just hoping that this is just something that it's kind of an, as you mentioned, an emphasis in your learning, because these are also some of the things that we consider to be the most important, um, for the program as a whole. I mean, using the Jungian lens is, you get to go more deeper into kind of symbolic lens. If you're doing stuff around somatics, everything that you will be thinking about will be a little bit more body focused, a bit more movement focused. Spiritual emergence is an incredibly important concept that um, comes from transpersonal psychology, that really allows you to see this crisis points as something that is kind of allows you to flourish and have kind of like a transformational experience that is not just a crisis, but kind of point for you from which you depart into kind of a new way of being in life. And um, and for instance, the regenerative business one, that's really designed for people who are entrepreneurs or who want to establish businesses, but also people who are just like interested in building something that but they don't exactly know how. So it hopefully will give you a little bit more tools and inspiration on just like how you can cultivate that what you want to cultivate in the world. Because one of the specialties of Vital is that we also have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of people who are not necessarily licensed practitioners, who are not necessarily even doing one-to-one work with clients. I mean, even though the predominant population is, but some people are really just looking for ways in which they can learn about themselves, learn about these substances, because they want to start a business. Maybe it's a retreat center, maybe it's some kind of selling some kind of produce, or maybe it's offering certain kind of services, maybe even doing education. There's lots of our past students have gone down those routes. So I hope that gives a little bit of an overview also, like what the utility of the specialization might be.
Definitely. I mean, that's a very important question. I know that we get this question all the time. I would say it's one of the most popular questions that we receive is what can I do with this certification? Is there anything that you might have missed in your explanation of what people can do with this all of this education, knowledge, and experience?
Well, I mean, as we always try to uh, do expectation management for our students, because obviously we're not, although we had plans to um, go through the official roads in Colorado and Oregon, hopefully in the next few years. But this specific training program, Vital, it doesn't lead to any kind of legal certification. So therefore, there's no, nobody can really go and practice with this specific um, certificate. However, I think the value of the course really comes from both the experience of being part of such community where all of the individuals are like working in the similar field. They're wanting to find their way in the psychedelic field. They're extremely passionate, and like that leads to this kind of like very inspiring collective, as well as like really getting a lot of important education for yourself that you wouldn't get otherwise, because it's quite hard to find, this kind of tailored education for specifically for altered states of consciousness and psychedelics, um, that is so multidisciplinary, and that also is like, looking back on a specific tradition and includes so many different facets. um, so I think the utility of it is really in the experience, and also in allowing that transformation within yourself. I mean, that's also something that a lot of our students have mentioned in the past, is that um, the program really allowed them to change as a person, and to kind of step up in the world. Or for some people it might have meant also um stepping down, or like not pursuing something, because they actually found in themselves something that, maybe this is actually not for me. Maybe I don't want to be a facilitator anymore. So I think the way in which we see our task is just in like creating more self awareness and more self knowledge for psychedelic practitioners, and creating safer and more ethical spaces for people to be in, and hoping to enhance their practice in that way. So hopefully that's what the students will walk away with.
That's awesome. And you touched on a really important point here, Johanna, of the fact that sometimes people come into the program and they have this idea of, I'm set on being a facilitator. This is what I've been meant to do my whole life. And then they go through this experience. They start to learn about other areas of how to integrate psychedelics into their own work, and they start to rediscover parts of this, of this world that they might not have learned about, or they feel as though maybe this isn't for me. Maybe holding space in ceremony or in a clinical environment isn't ideal. But there are so many other ways that we can integrate this work into our potential careers. And so I just really wanted to emphasize that point. I think it's such an important one because it allows for that process to continue to unfold throughout the year based on what you had described.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I One of our lecturers, Don, came, and he started out his lecture by saying that, okay, I'm gonna be provoking you a little bit here, and actually I'm gonna feel accomplished is if some of you feel by the end of this lecture that you are not prepared to be space holders and facilitators. So it's, just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but truly there are a lot of people wanting to go into this line of work without really having the necessary skills or experience. And while it's like having good intentions is super important, it's also very important to know your scope of practice, and know where you can really be of service. And there are so many ways in which people can be of service in this movement, and it doesn't necessarily need to be being a space holder for everyone at all.
Totally. And that's, I think, where that elective is really interesting, the regenerative business elective that's been, and specialization that's been introduced. I think, people who are a little more entrepreneurial, have a focus on maybe building something interesting within the industry, will definitely benefit from that, because there is actually so much that needs to be in place structurally within this area before we can really call this a fully fledged, fully blown, fully realized space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And so I actually wanted to quickly talk to you about some of the guest lecturers, either ones that have been a part of Vital in the past or ones that are coming up that the audience can, anticipate as a part of the lectures that they'll be experiencing. So something that's really exciting about Vital is that it is often harnessed by some of the top professionals within the space. And I would love to hear your experience with that. What have been some of the highlights for you in working with some of these exciting practitioners, researchers, and what can people expect for this year? What are some of those, notable individuals?
Yeah, wow. Oh, that's a tough one because we do have so many amazing lecturers. Like it's kind of we tried to take it to be our goal that like most of the week students would leave this feeling of like wow, like like I really learned something new here. Um, I mean, for me, obviously, because I have this very deep interest and passion for Jungian psychology and this whole framework, I have really loved most lectures that I have been in that category. So Maria Papaspiro, Ido Cohen, Mackenzie Amara, who is our past lecturer, sorry, our past student, and now our current lecturer. Um, I all of those have been fantastic. I also really love and admire the work of Luis Eduardo Luna, who is also a little bit um, of like an elder in the psychedelics space, as well as Kylia Taylor. And she's also so fantastic. So it feels a bit wrong to be picking out people because we really just like everybody is so good in their own ways, and it really just depends on your kind of specific interest, like what lecture resonates with you. And there's also been just such a diversity around like who like which it's like there's no like clear coherence along like which lectures are very specific. Like we, for instance, had Ben Malcolm to talk about neuroscience, and it was quite high level lecture, it was quite detailed, and some students absolutely loved it, like they just couldn't get enough of it. And then some people said like it went a little bit over my head, it was quite technical. So it's like it just always depends where you're at and what's your interest.
For sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your personal highlights. I think it's important that people understand kind of some of the lecturers that will be joining us because, like Johanna said, there's such a variety of expertise that is being brought, and everybody is so incredible in what they do. I know last year you talked a little bit about the graduation ceremony. Can you let everybody know a little bit about that and how that went?
Oh, oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's I wasn't expecting that question, but yeah, of course, like it's the student community is really special, and that's also something that we really um we want to kind of bring out as much of the students' talent and the students' experience, because in a lot of ways, Vital is also about the students themselves. So and this is just going on a little bit of a tangent, but it will end in the graduation ceremony. But um, we have number of opportunities also for our past students to get engaged. So actually, we do these Monday webinars, which always the previous cohort actually gets an opportunity to present. So if you graduated and you want to present to your peers and the alumni, those you will as a Vital student and alumni, you will have access to those webinars indefinitely because they're always student webinars, so they're free of charge, and everybody who comes into them is part of the Vital community, and the students just present on things that they're interested in. And then also, this year we have some sort of apprentice roles also for our past students, so we're just really trying to get more of the student population kind of engaged with us as well to just keep this community alive. And it's very nice seeing some of our past students starting to work with us as well. So coming into that, in the graduation ceremony, we also invite some of our students to kind of do things, maybe do some spoken word or maybe speeches, like graduation speeches, some sort of music has sometimes also been involved. It's a little bit of a mystery. We always try to keep it on a down low, just so people don't know what to expect. But that's for a lot of the students, kind of this really beautiful way of concluding the year, or at least I hope so. I think they've been generally well liked.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really lovely experience and something really special, I think, to share with your study group and then with just the greater community. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I just wanted to mention that if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask Johanna about the Vital program and what's coming up for that, feel free to drop those in the chat right now. But we can go through maybe some more of these technical questions just in case people are curious about some of those. So applications are due this Friday, correct?
Well, technically the applications were closing tomorrow, and to this Friday, actually, as in tomorrow. Yes, that is true. So you have to submit your application very soon. I just lost the day of the week there. Happens.
Amazing. So you can get your applications through by tomorrow, and it as well. Do you have to have some kind of certification to be able to join Vital? Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that? Who is able to apply?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, the short answer is no, and but there's a longer answer, which is that we do expect a certain level of um, I don't want to say like accreditation, because it's really not, it's also not really about your degrees, it's not really about your work experience, but it really is about your intentionality around the program, and what you wish to do and where you wish to go with it. And so we look at all of these factors in combination, so both your background, what you do professionally, um, your level of experience, and your desire for doing the program and the reasoning behind it.
Awesome. And is prior experience with psychedelics mandatory for the Vital program? Can you talk a little bit about that? I know that can be a little bit of a contentious, spicy issue, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's not actually. I mean, for a lot of people, Vital is also an entry point into the psychedelic space, and I quite like that because it's a very safe container, and you get so much information. So when you go into your first experience, you will actually be quite well equipped, at least on a level of education. Although, like, it's not really quite the same as having the experiential knowledge also. Um, so essentially, no. We have this year also, we are implementing something called the experienced practitioner groups. So as we have multiple of these study groups that run weekly along with the Tuesday webinars, we have few groups that are for people who are a little bit more experienced, and that's simply for the fact that we have such a diverse student population, and we have seen the need for people who want, even though I think most people are really enjoying the diversity, we have also seen the need for those who are really working in client work very intensively to have a little bit more of their own space, so that they can exchange freely with ones who are in the similar professional track. So essentially, no. Essentially, you should, regardless if you're hesitating whether to apply or not. I don't think your level of experience should be a question mark for you, and we will determine your suitability based on the factors that I just outlined there.
Great. Thanks, Johanna. Thanks for clearing that up. And can you also explain a little bit about how the experiential component is going to be structured for this year? So in addition to the weekly lectures, as well as study groups and integration experiences, there is that hands-on component. So can you maybe elaborate on what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, what we ask the students to do is something that we call the experiential elective, and this means that the students will either by themselves or through the recommended providers from us find themselves an experience, and either they will uh, again, based on their level of experience and how they determine it for themselves, they can either just have a retreat experience. So we have a number of providers that we will recommend, both from the Netherlands as well as from the US, from various places, all legal providers also, who we think that are very suitable for that kind of experience. So either the students can have an experience themselves, or if they are more experienced and they have the opportunity to work with somebody else, they can also choose to do a kind of shadowing, facilitating, space holding experience. And in both cases, you will have to write a process paper, and then you will get some feedback on it. So that's the experiential component um, of the program. And then in addition to that, we will be organizing some of our own meetups and our own breathwork sessions as well. But the locations and the details of those are still to be announced.
Amazing. And what were some examples of meetups and experiences that Vital students have engaged with in the past?
So, for instance, like I'm based in the UK, so I'm oftentimes present for the European UK side of things. So last year we did last June we did a breathwork retreat in the Netherlands. That was a few days prior to the ICPR conference. So we're oftentimes trying to do things that are around these kinds of bigger events, so that if students travel, they actually would get to have both the experience of going to a conference as well as maybe meetings with some of the Vital instructors and staff and students. And we've also organized these kinds of shorter breathwork events in the US as well as longer breathwork retreats. But yeah, as I said, the kind of details of those are still to be announced for the upcoming cohort.
Great. I mean, that sounds really fun. I love the fact that you can engage and connect with your study group online and then have the opportunity to meet with them regardless of, where they are in the world at some point, hopefully throughout the experience. And that's just such a special bond I could imagine developing over the course of time when you're working so closely, having such vulnerable, thoughtful conversations with people week to week. It just sounds really lovely.
Yeah, no, it's so nice to be in person with people. It's really amazing.
Awesome. So I'm just taking a look here to see if we have any questions, and I'm not seeing anything. But if anybody does have a question for the education team, they want to, they have something we haven't been able to cover here, something that hasn't been covered on the website or in the curriculum, where can they contact yourself, or the education team for more info?
Yeah, for the you can get access to the admin team by vital@psychedelicstoday.com is the email address. That's the quickest, that will get you the fastest response. And no, there are no stupid questions, although do read the information on the website. There's quite a lot of information there. So I assume that most of you would have the website already, but if not, it's vitalpsychedelictraining.com. And you can, yeah, read most of the information about the program there. But if you still have some boiling questions, the vital@psychedelicstoday.com is the email address where you can reach us at.
Awesome. And if you have questions and you want the course overview and curriculum, you can head to vitalpsychedelictraining.com to put your name and email in there, download the informational packet. And if you do want to apply, the application button is right there on the website as well. The process for the applications, just quickly before we wind down, Johanna, how does that go?
So if you submit your application, which the application deadline is tomorrow, so uh, please bear that in mind. It will go into the system. I think these list applications, we tend to get quite a lot of people in, so it might take a couple of days for somebody to get back to you, and then you will be scheduled for an interview. And after the interview, we will send you an approval based on how the interview went, and then the course starts on the 17th of September.
Awesome. So please get your applications in, everybody. And we have a couple of weeks until classes start. So it's very exciting stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today, Johanna. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much for hosting this. And hello to everyone behind the screen who, well, yeah, I can't see any of you, but maybe see you in the program.
Hopefully see you in the program. Thanks, guys.